The ranch that sleeps during the day and lives at night, the shadows that walk alone. Dust clung to Miguel's throat like wet sand. He stopped the old pickup truck in front of the rusty gate and looked at the crooked sign hanging by a single wire. Valley of Silence Ranch. The name couldn't have been more fitting. Not even the wind dared blow there. It was midday on a sweltering Tuesday in March, and Miguel had just inherited that forgotten piece of land from his uncle Augusto, a man he had barely known. Augusto had died alone 3 weeks ago, found stiff on the porch of the main house, his eyes fixed on the horizon as if waiting for something that never came. "Don't go there at night," were the lawyer's only words as he handed over the keys. "Your uncle wrote that down. He said it was important." Michael laughed at the time. Old man's superstition, he thought. But now, looking at that expanse of dry, silent land, he felt a chill down his spine that the 40-degree sun couldn't warm. The house was bigger than he expected. 2 stories of weathered wood, with windows that looked like empty eyes watching his every move. The curtains were all drawn, despite the unbearable heat. Miguel pushed open the front door, which gave way with a sharp groan. The interior smelled of mildew and something else. Something metallic and heavy that he couldn't identify. Furniture covered in white sheets created ghostly shapes in the dim light. Miguel walked to the main room and pulled back a curtain in one swift motion. Sunlight flooded the room like dammed water, revealing a perfectly preserved space. Leather sofas, a huge dining table, paintings on the walls. But there was something unsettling about the paintings. They all depicted the same scene. The ranch at night, under a starless sky, with dark figures on the edges of the property. "Your uncle was obsessed," said a voice behind him. Miguel turned so fast he almost tripped. In the doorway stood a woman of about 60, thin as a dry twig, with deep-set eyes that had seen too much. "Sorry to startle you. I'm Carmen, the only neighbor within a 15-kilometer radius. I came to see if you had arrived." "Miguel." He extended his hand, but she didn't shake it. She just looked at his palm as if searching for something. "You have the same hands as Augusto," she murmured. "I hope you don't share the same fate." "What happened to my uncle?" Carmen walked to the window and looked out at the land outside. "Augusto was a brave man, or a fool. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. He tried to understand this place. He tried to tame it like you tame a wild horse. But you can't tame what doesn't breathe, what has no heart." She turned, her eyes moist. "Augusto slept during the day and stayed awake at night. Every night, for 20 years. Until one night, he simply gave up." Miguel felt a prickling sensation on his skin. Given up on what? To watch over. To keep things in the place where they should be. Before Miguel could ask more, Carmen was already walking toward the door. "Don't open the windows after sunset. Don't leave the house. And if you hear footsteps upstairs, don't go up. Never go up." She stopped in the doorway and added without looking back, "And if you see your own shadow moving on its own, close your eyes and count to 100. Slowly, the door closed, and Miguel was alone again. The hours passed slowly. Miguel explored the house, finding notebooks stacked in his uncle's office. Pages and pages of notes in a cramped, nervous handwriting. He sat down and began to read. April 15th. The shadow of the barn moved 3 meters westward at dusk. No wind, no explanation. I filmed it, but the camera didn't record anything. They don't appear in recordings, only to the human eye. April 22nd. I found footprints on the porch this morning, barefoot, small, but there was no one there. The footprints simply stopped in the middle of the patio, as if whoever made them had evaporated into thin air. May 3rd, I'm tired, so tired, but I can't sleep at night. If I sleep, they come in. I found one in the kitchen last week. My own shadow, but separate from me, rummaging through the drawers. When I screamed, it dissolved like smoke. It returned to my feet as if nothing had happened. June 17th, I discovered the pattern. They only separate from those who sleep. It's sleep that loosens the bond. That's why I sleep during the day, when the sunlight keeps them attached. At night, I stay awake. Always awake. It's the only way. Miguel closed the notebook with trembling hands. His uncle was crazy. He had to be. Shadows don't move on their own. They don't live. They don't think. The sun was low when Miguel decided he needed some fresh air. He walked out onto the porch, observing the long shadows cast by the golden light of dusk. The shadow of the fence, the shadow of the barn, his own shadow, stretched thin on the wooden floor. That's when he saw it. His shadow was staring at him. It wasn't possible. Shadows don't have faces. They don't have eyes. But there, in the dark silhouette projected on the ground, were two even darker points, like dilated pupils, fixed on him with an intensity that cut to the bone. Miguel stepped back, and the shadow stepped back with him. He raised his hand, and the shadow raised its hand. Normal. Everything normal. But those eyes, those damned eyes kept watching. The sun touched the horizon, and suddenly all the shadows around the property seemed to pulse. A single collective breath, and then absolute silence. Miguel ran inside the house and locked all the doors and windows. His heart was pounding so hard it hurt in his chest. He searched for the notebooks again, desperately turning pages until he found them. Rules for survival. Never sleep at night. Keep the lights on in all rooms. If your shadow separates, don't try to catch it. It will return on its own at dawn. Don't let anyone in after sunset, not even if they look like people you know. If you hear voices imitating loved ones, cover your ears. The second floor is their territory between midnight and 3 in the morning. Don't trespass. If you fail in any rule, pray that dawn comes quickly. Michael looked at his watch. 6:47 p.m. I still had more than 12 hours until sunrise. He ran through the house, turning on all the lights. The electricity was working, at least that. When he finished, the house shone like a beacon in the darkness that was rapidly engulfing the grounds outside. She went to the kitchen to make coffee. Lots of coffee. She was going to need it. While the water boiled, Miguel heard it. Soft footsteps on the floor above. Regular. Methodical. Like someone walking back and forth, tirelessly. He looked at his watch. 7:15 p.m. It wasn't midnight yet. The rules said the second floor was only dangerous between midnight and 3 in the morning. So who was up there? The footsteps stopped. A tense silence that made the ears ring. Then, a voice. Soft. Familiar in a way that cut deep. Miguel? Is he down there? It was his mother's voice. The mother who had died 5 years ago. The voice he dreamed of hearing again on every birthday, every Christmas. Miguel, son, why don't you come up? I miss you so much. Tears stung his eyes. It wasn't possible. It wasn't real. But God, how tempting it was to believe. Even if just for a second. Even if it was a comforting lie. It's not her, Miguel whispered to himself. It's not her. It's not her. I have a hug waiting for you, my son. You just need to come up these stairs. Miguel pressed his hands against his ears, but the voice kept penetrating. How did it know? How did that thing know exactly what he most wanted to hear? It's not real, he yelled at the ceiling. You're not my mother. The silence that followed was worse than the voice. A silence filled with suppressed anger, with a missed opportunity. Miguel filled a mug with coffee and forced himself to drink despite his trembling hands. The clock read 8:30 p.m. There was still so much time left. So much time. He sat in the main room, keeping his back against the wall so he could see all the entrances. Weariness was already beginning to weigh on his eyelids. How had Augustus endured this for 20 years? 20 years without a full night's sleep. 20 years on watch. Waiting. Fighting against something formless. Something that couldn't be killed. A movement at the window. Miguel looked and his blood froze. Outside, pressed against the glass, was a human silhouette made entirely of shadow. No facial features, no details, just a dark humanoid form that shouldn't exist outside of a light source. And she was knocking on the window, gently, like a polite visitor asking to come in. You're not coming in, Miguel said, more to himself than to the thing. You can't come in unless I let you. The figure tilted its head, as if considering his words. Then, slowly, it raised a hand and pointed downward, toward Miguel's shadow projected on the floor by the lamplight. His shadow was moving. It wasn't following his movements. It wasn't a reflex. It was moving on its own, slowly separating itself from his feet, sliding across the floor like spilled oil. Miguel jumped, moving away from the light, but it was no use. The shadow continued its independent movement, expanding, gaining volume, becoming three-dimensional. In a panic, he grabbed a lamp and threw it against the wall, extinguishing the light. In the sudden darkness, he heard an angry hiss. When he turned on another light, the shadow was back at his feet, flat and harmless. But how many lights would he have to turn off before there were none left? And what would happen then, in complete darkness, with a house full of loose shadows? God, he murmured, what is this place? He searched for more notebooks, finding an older one with a worn leather cover. The handwriting was different, older, dated 1952. This ranch was built on cursed land. We learned too late. Ancient tribes avoided this valley. They called it the place where souls wait. We didn't understand the warning. We thought it was primitive superstition. How foolish we were. The shadows here are not merely the absence of light. They are, how to describe them? They are the negatives of ourselves. Everything we repress, everything we deny, everything we hide. They live on the edges of our perception, bound to us by light and wakefulness. But sleep loosens the chains. And here, in this cursed place, the chains break completely. My wife was the first. She fell asleep one Sunday afternoon, exhausted from working in the garden. When she woke up at nightfall, her shadow was gone. It simply wasn't there anymore. The light hit her from all angles, but it didn't project anything, as if she were no longer whole. 3 days later, I found her talking to herself in the kitchen, except she wasn't alone. There was something in the corner, something that was sucking in the light instead of blocking it. She was bargaining with it, begging it to give back what had been taken. The thing agreed but demanded a price. One night, one complete night of freedom, using her body as if it were its own. We didn't allow it. I tied my wife to the bed, promising we would find another solution. But at midnight, she stopped fighting. Her eyes turned completely black, like holes in the universe. And the voice that came out of her mouth wasn't hers. "You can imprison us," the thing said. "You can deny us for days, weeks, years. But we are infinitely patient. And you frail humans need to sleep. Eventually, you all sleep." Miguel closed his diary with trembling hands. He looked at the clock. 11:40 p.m. Almost midnight. Almost the most dangerous hour. The exhaustion was becoming unbearable. His eyes burned. His head felt like lead. He pinched his arm hard, the pain bringing momentary clarity. He needed to stay awake. Just a few more hours. Just until dawn. A loud bang upstairs made him jump. Something heavy had fallen, or someone heavy had jumped. The lights began to flicker, all at once in a hypnotic rhythm. Flickering, flickering, flickering. Miguel realized it too late. The pattern was synchronizing with his heartbeat, slowing down, slower, calming him, luring him into sleep. He ran to the kitchen and splashed ice water on his face. He pinched himself. He bit his tongue until he tasted blood. The pain held him anchored, but for how long? Midnight arrived with the sound of something heavy being dragged down the second-floor hallway. Miguel could hear it through the ceiling. Something big. Something that didn't care about being heard. The windows began to fog up, as if something outside was breathing on the glass. Shapes began to appear in the fog. Faces. Dozens of faces pressed against all the windows, looking inside. Waiting. Miguel huddled in the center of the room, as far away from the walls as possible. His eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, searching for movements that shouldn't be there. And then he saw his shadow again. It was still clinging to his feet, but it was different, denser, as if it had gained weight and substance. And it was looking at him again with those invisible yet undeniable eyes. Slowly, very slowly, the shadow began to smile. Shadows have no mouths. They have no teeth. But that smile was as real as death, wide and cruel, revealing something cold and ancient. "You are not me," Miguel whispered. "You are not a part of me." The shadow tilted its head, as if in disagreement. Then, with a smooth movement, it rose from the ground like a cloth being pulled by invisible threads. It stood before him, a perfect yet independent silhouette. And he spoke, not with a voice, but Miguel heard it nonetheless, directly inside his head. "But I am you. I am every bad thought you've had and repressed. Every dark desire. Every violent impulse hidden beneath polite masks. I am what you would be if you weren't afraid of the consequences." "Lies," Miguel replied, but his voice was weak. "Really? Remember when you wished your boss would die? When you vividly imagined what it would be like to push him from the 10th floor? Remember the guilty relief when you learned your ex-girlfriend was suffering? Remember all the little cruelties you committed and justified? Everyone has bad thoughts. That doesn't mean. It means that I exist. And here, in this place, I no longer need to be tied to you. I can be free. I can do all the things you want but don't have the courage to do." The shadow drew closer. "You're so tired, Miguel. Why don't you sleep? Just for an hour. I'll take care of everything. I can be you for a while. And you can finally rest." It was tempting. God, it was so tempting. Miguel felt his eyelids grow heavy like anchors. His body begged for rest. Just 1 hour. What could happen in 1 hour? But then he remembered. He remembered Uncle Augusto, found dead on the balcony, his eyes fixed on the horizon. What if Augusto hadn't died of old age? What if he had simply given up one night, let his shadow take over, and never managed to reclaim his body? "No," Miguel forced the words through his numb lips. "You don't have me. You won't have me." The shadow laughed, a sound that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Then suffer. Fight for a few more hours. Tomorrow will be the same. And the next night. And the next. Do you think you can survive 20 years like Augusto? You're not that strong. No human is." The lights in the house began to go out, one by one, systematically, leaving only small islands of light in a growing ocean of darkness. And in the darkness, Miguel could see shapes moving. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All the shadows that had separated themselves from all the people who had ever slept in that cursed ranch over the decades. They were coming towards him. Miguel ran. He didn't think, he just ran, climbing the stairs to the 2nd floor because there was nowhere else to go. He broke the most important rule. But what else could you do? The ground floor was consumed by living shadows that crawled along the walls like spiders, whispering promises with the voices of dead loved ones. The 2nd floor hallway was empty, silent, frighteningly normal. Miguel stumbled to the end of the hallway where there was a single door he hadn't explored before. He locked it, a real lock, heavy and sturdy, as if it were made specifically to keep something out, or someone in. The room was small, no windows, just a bed, a chair, and walls covered in mirrors. Everywhere, all reflecting her exhausted and terrified image from multiple angles. That's when Miguel understood. This was Augusto's room, his final refuge, surrounded by mirrors because shadows need flat surfaces to project onto, and mirrors confused them, fragmented them, made it difficult for them to fully manifest. He let himself fall into the chair, looking at his multiple reflections. In some of the mirrors, his shadow was where it should be, but in others it stood behind him, independent, observing the back of his neck with those eyes it shouldn't have. The clock on the wall read 2:15. Less than an hour until 3 in the morning. Less than an hour until their hold on the 2nd floor ended. And then just a few more hours until dawn. He could do it. He had to do it. A soft knock on the door. "Miguel?" It was Augusto's voice. "Nephew, open the door. I didn't die. It was all a mistake. I'm here. I'm alive. Please, open the door." Miguel covered his ears. "You're dead. I saw your death certificate. They forged it. They wanted me out of the way. But I came back. I can help you, Miguel. I can teach you how to survive here. You just need to open the door." "No." The voice changed. It grew colder. "You can't stay there forever. Eventually you'll have to leave. And we'll be waiting. Always waiting." Miguel looked at the mirrors again and saw. In the reflections, the hallway behind the door was full of them. Human-shaped shadows, huddled together, pressing against each other in their eagerness to get in. So many that it was impossible to count. The shadows of how many generations. How many families had lived and died on this ranch, feeding this growing horde. Time dragged on like cold honey. Miguel sang children's songs, recited poems he had learned at school, did mental math calculations. Anything to keep his mind working, to ward off the sleep that lurked on the edges of his consciousness like a patient predator. 2H47, 2H53, 2H58. 3 in the morning arrived with absolute silence. The knocking on the door stopped. The voices ceased. The oppressive weight that had filled the air since midnight suddenly lifted, as if an invisible atmospheric pressure had shifted. Miguel waited another 15 minutes before daring to open the door. The hallway was empty, completely empty. He descended the stairs slowly, each step creaking too loudly in the silence. The ground floor was as he had left it, messy, but devoid of living shadows. They had retreated, at least for the moment, back to their places in the corners and under the furniture, waiting for the next night. Miguel collapsed onto the sofa and looked out the window. The sky was beginning to lighten on the horizon. Soft shades of lavender blue were replacing the absolute black. Dawn had never looked so beautiful. He had survived. One night, a single hellish night, and he would have to do it again. Every night. For how long? Until he died like Augustus? Until he gave up and let his shadow consume what remained of his humanity? No, there had to be another solution. There had to be. Miguel spent the day reading all the diaries, every scrap of paper left by Augusto and the previous residents. He was searching for answers, for some way to break the curse, to purify the land, to make the shadows sleep permanently. And he found it, on the last page of the oldest diary, a passage almost illegible, written in trembling handwriting. "The shaman told me, only once can the bond be broken, but the price is high. One must confront one's own shadow completely, not run away, not fight, face it, accept that it is part of you. Absorb it back not with fear, but with understanding. Acknowledge the darkness within and still choose the light. But beware. If you fail, if the shadow proves stronger than your will, you will become nothing but an empty shell. A body without a soul, wandering until the flesh rots. I saw it happen. God forgive me. I saw it and I couldn't stop it." Miguel closed the book. He had a choice: to live as Augusto lived, in eternal vigil and growing madness, or to risk everything in a single attempt to end it all. It wasn't really a choice. As the sun began to set again, Miguel didn't turn on all the lights. He remained seated in the darkened room, waiting. His heart pounded, but his hands remained steady. Darkness arrived like a wave, and with it, his shadow separated from his feet and stood before him, taking shape and substance. "Have you given up?" asked the shadow in a voice that was its own but wasn't. "No," Miguel replied. "I came to make a deal." The shadow tilted its head, curious. "You say you're a part of me, then prove it. Show me all the dark moments you represent. Every terrible thought, every vile desire, every moral failing. Show me everything, and I promise to look. I promise to accept that yes, this is also me." "Why would I do that?" "Because running from you doesn't work. Fighting you only makes you stronger. The only way to survive is to accept you back. Not as my master, but as my shadow. Where you belong." The shadow considered. Then slowly it smiled. "Very well, but be prepared. What you will see cannot be unseen. What you acknowledge cannot be denied." And then Miguel saw, not with his eyes, but with something deeper. He saw every moment of his life in which he had chosen the easy path instead of the right one. Every time he had lied to avoid consequences. Every cruel impulse he had felt, even those he never acted on. The jealousy, the envy, the anger. the pride, the desire to see others fail so that he would look better. He remembered the moment when he was 12 years old and had purposefully let his dog escape because he was tired of taking care of it. The secret relief when the animal never returned. The momentary hatred he felt for his mother when she disciplined him, so intense that he wished she would disappear. The small daily cruelties he had committed and forgotten because they were too small to matter. It was horrible. It was nauseating. It was human. Yes, Miguel whispered through the tears streaming down his face. Yes, that's me. That's also me. Not just the kindness I show to the world. Also this darkness I hide. Both are real. Both are mine. Then why should you live? The shadow asked. Why does someone so flawed deserve to continue existing? Because acknowledging my flaws isn't the same as being defined by them. Because I can choose to do better. I won't be perfect, but I can try, and that has value. The shadow remained silent for a long moment. Then, incredibly, it began to wither, to lose substance, to become less dense, less solid. You understand, she said, and for the first time her voice held no malice, just recognition. You really understand. We are one. Miguel extended his hand. You are my shadow. Go back to where you belong. Not because I reject you, but because I accept you. The shadow touched his hand. The contact was cold but not uncomfortable. And then, like smoke sucked up by a current of air, it flowed back to him, re-embedding itself at his feet, becoming once more just an absence of light projected by his body. Miguel fell to his knees sobbing, not from sadness, but from relief so intense it hurt. She looked around the house. The other shadows were still there on the walls in the corners, but they were still, watching, waiting, as if they had witnessed something important and needed time to process it. In the following days, something changed at Rancho Vale do Silencio. The shadows were still there. Miguel could feel them watching, waiting, but not with the same voracious hunger. It was as if his acceptance had created a crack in the veil, showing them that there was another possibility besides predation. Carmen appeared on the morning of the third day, bringing fresh eggs and homemade bread. She stopped on the porch, studying Miguel with sharp eyes. You fell asleep, she said. It wasn't a question. I slept, Miguel confirmed, all night, without waking up. And it's still here. It's still you. She entered slowly, as if expecting something to leap from the shadows at any moment. Augusto never managed it. He tried for 20 years and never managed to do what you did in 2 nights. He was fighting, Miguel explained, trying to keep the shadows away as if they were invaders. But they are not invaders. They are parts of us that got lost in this cursed place. Carmen placed the basket on the table and looked out the windows. The others are still here. The shadows of those who came before. Dozens of them. Perhaps hundreds. I know. Miguel poured coffee for both of them, his hands steady now. And each one needs to be reunited with its source. Or completely freed. If the people who created them have already died, these shadows are trapped here, without a body to return to. They need permission to leave. Carmen drank her coffee in silence, processing it. Are you going to try to free them all? I am going to try. You'll die trying. Some of these shadows are ancient, Miguel. Very ancient. Fueled by decades of anger and despair. They won't simply go away because you ask them to politely. Then I will die trying, Miguel said simply. But I will not live as Augusto lived. Nor will I abandon this place and let the curse spread. That night, Miguel prepared himself. He read all the names he could find in the old diaries. Every person who had lived on the ranch since its construction in 1949. 37 names in total. 37 souls who had left pieces of themselves trapped on that land. When darkness fell, he lit candles in a circle in the center of the room. He sat inside the circle and waited. It didn't take long. The shadows came, sliding across the walls like oil stains. But this time Miguel didn't feel fear. He felt sadness, because now he understood what they were. Crystallized pain, darkness that had never been acknowledged or accepted, fragments of humanity, abandoned in panic and shame. Thomas Whitmore, he called out the first name, builder of this ranch, died in 1952. If your shadow is still here, I see you. I recognize you. You don't need to hide anymore. One of the shadows moved, older than the others, more worn. It crawled to the edge of the circle of candles and stopped, as if afraid to come any closer. You made mistakes, Miguel continued, closing his eyes, letting the words come from somewhere deep within. You built on this land knowing something was wrong. You put your family in danger. You carried that guilt until you died and left that weight here, trapped in this place. But Thomas, you were human. Humans make mistakes, and you don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. The shadow trembled. For a moment, Miguel swore he saw the outline of a face in it. An old, tired man with eyes full of regret. I forgive you, Miguel whispered. In the name of all who came after, all who suffered because of your choice, I forgive you. You can go now. You can rest. Thomas Whitmore's shadow began to dissolve. Not violently, but like mist touched by sunlight. It fragmented into tiny particles that floated upward, passed through the ceiling, and disappeared, rising to some place Miguel couldn't see but chose to believe was better. One by one, he called out their names. Some responded immediately, relieved to finally be recognized. Others resisted, their shadows distorted by so long in independent form that they barely remembered what it was to be whole. Margaret Chen, he called. Professor. She died in 1967. Her shadow still carries the shame of the thoughts she had about her students. Thoughts she never acted on, but which terrified her nonetheless. A smaller, almost childlike shadow emerged, crying. A soundless sound, but one that Miguel felt in his bones. Having bad thoughts didn't make you bad, Margaret. It made you human. Every living person has had thoughts that scared them. What matters is that you chose to be kind anyway. You chose to protect instead of harm. That choice was worth more than 1,000 bad thoughts. Margaret's shadow dissolved into tears of light. The night stretched on. Miguel called out name after name. Some shadows departed easily. Others demanded hours of conversation, of recognition, of forgiveness. He felt it when he touched upon deep traumas, upon shames that had become monstrous in the darkness. Hidden abuse, secret vices, desires that society condemned. Every piece of humanity that people had rejected with such horror that the fragments had gained a life of their own. When dawn arrived, 23 shadows had departed. 14 remained, the oldest, the most damaged, those who had completely forgotten that they were once human. Miguel staggered to the kitchen and collapsed into a chair, exhausted to the bone. But it was a clean kind of tiredness. Honest, the tiredness of hard work well done. Carmen arrived at noon and found him asleep with his head on the table. She covered him with a blanket and prepared soup. When he woke up, she was sitting on the other side of the table, watching him with an indecipherably complex expression. 14 left last night, she said. She didn't ask how she knew. In this place, some things were simply known. I felt it when it happened. The air grew lighter, still heavy, but lighter. There are still 14 to go. The worst ones, Carmen nodded. The ones Augusto feared most. There's one especially. She hesitated. A shadow that doesn't belong to any name in the records. Older than the ranch. Something that was already here when the land was bought. A chill ran down Miguel's spine. From the people who lived here before? From the ancient tribes? Perhaps. Or perhaps something even older. There are places on Earth that accumulate darkness, Miguel. Like valleys accumulate water. This is one of those places. And that shadow? It is the guardian. The source. The queen of shadows, if you want a melodramatic title. Where is she? In the barn. She'd always been there. Augusto said he could feel her there, watching, waiting. He never had the courage to confront her directly. Miguel looked out the window at the old, faded red wooden barn. It seemed harmless in the daylight, just an abandoned farm structure. But even now, he could feel something emanating from it. a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. I'll go there tonight. He's going to die, perhaps, but I can't free the other 14 without dealing with her first. As long as the source remains, they will remain. It's like trying to dry up a lake while the river keeps feeding it. Carmen didn't argue. She simply nodded, accepting the inevitable. I'll keep watch from my house. If you don't leave the barn by dawn, I'll burn everything down. The house, the barn, every structure on this cursed land. Better to purify everything by fire than to let it spread. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. The day passed too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Miguel prepared himself by reading more, learning more about the valley. He discovered that before the tribes, there had been something older. Rock paintings on the nearby hills showed dark figures with almost human forms, worshipped or feared by peoples whose names were lost millennia ago. This was not merely a place where shadows separated themselves from humans. It was a place where darkness itself was conscious. It was hungry. It had a purpose. As the sun touched the horizon, Miguel walked to the barn. Each step seemed heavier than the last, as if the very air tried to dissuade him. The barn door was ajar, revealing only absolute darkness inside. He went in. Darkness completely engulfed him. There was no light. Not even the faint glimmer of the stars penetrated here. It was such a complete emptiness that Miguel couldn't even see his own hand in front of his face. But he could feel it. Something immense was there with him, not moving, but present in a way that made every nerve scream in alarm. You came, a voice echoed, ancient, deep, neither masculine nor feminine. The others ran or fought or negotiated. You are the first to simply come. I came to understand. Miguel forced the words through his constricted throat, and to be released. A sound that could be laughter. Free? Silly child. I'm not a prisoner. This place is mine by choice. Because? Silence. Then, show me your shadow. Miguel looked down, but there was no light to cast a shadow. Still, he felt it separate from him, flowing into the darkness, joining the invisible vastness. Ah, the voice sighed. You tamed her. How rare. How delightful. A shadow that knows its place and yet maintains its individuality. You have talent, child. I didn't come here to be praised. No? Then why? To destroy me? You can't. To expel me? I was here before your kind drew in caves. To convert me? To what light exactly? Humans have created more darkness in this world than I ever could. To understand, Miguel repeated. You feed on the darkness we reject, on the parts of ourselves we don't want to face. But why? What is the purpose? Another pause, a longer one this time. Nobody has ever asked that before. I'm asking now. The purpose. The voice sounded genuinely thoughtful. You humans are so good at creating darkness and then pretending it doesn't exist. You push your fears, your anger, your shame into hidden corners and expect them to disappear. But energy doesn't disappear, child. It just changes form. And when so many shadows are rejected, abandoned, denied, they have to go somewhere. So you are, what? A cosmic garbage dump for what humanity doesn't want to see. What a disgusting image, but not entirely inaccurate. The voice had a touch of bitter humor. I accumulate, I absorb, I give form to what has been left shapeless. And yes, sometimes I feed on it. Not out of malice, but out of nature. I am made of rejected darkness. How else could I exist? Miguel considered this. The shadows I released, you let them go. Why? Because you completed them first. You gave them recognition, acceptance, forgiveness. When a shadow is reintegrated or released with true understanding, it leaves no residue for me to consume. You basically recycled them properly before throwing them away. Despite the situation, Miguel almost laughed. So all I need to do is recycle the other 14? The other 14 have been mine for too long. Distorted, corrupted, nourished by my own whispers for decades. They no longer remember what they were. They are my offspring now. Everything can be remembered, Miguel argued. If someone is willing to help, if someone shows that it's worth remembering. What lovely optimism. And naive. Then prove me wrong. Let me try. The silence stretched on for so long that Miguel thought he had offended the creature beyond replies. Then, you are fascinating. There is true darkness within you. I saw it when your shadow merged. I could feed for months on what you carry. And yet you choose light. Why? Because darkness alone is empty, Miguel replied. And light alone is blinding. We need both. The difference is that I choose which one dominates. The presence shifted, as if moving around him in invisible circles. I'll make a deal. Summon your 14 shadows. If you can reconnect them, save them, free them, I won't interfere. But if you fail, if any of them consume you, you are mine. Body, mind, soul. You will join me here in the barn, increasing my substance, making me stronger. What if I succeed? So maybe it's time for me to move on too. If even the most corrupted shadows can find peace, maybe there's hope for me as well. Maybe I'm just tired of accumulating everyone else's pain. Miguel reached out into the darkness, knowing he wouldn't touch anything but making the gesture anyway. I wake up. He felt something cold touch his palm. Not flesh, not substance, just recognition. Darkness exploded into motion. 14 forms materialized around him, each more distorted than the last. They were no longer simple human silhouettes. They were nightmares taken shape. Elongated faces with mouths too wide open. Limbs at impossible angles. Eyes that were open wounds instead of organs of sight. The first one lunged at him, shadowy claws tearing the air where his throat had been a second before. Miguel rolled over, his heart racing. Don't fight, he shouted to himself. Understand. He forced himself to look at the creature. Really look, beyond the monstrous form. And he saw a young woman, no more than 20 years old. Absolute terror etched into every line of her distorted being. Sarah, he whispered, remembering the name from the diaries. Sarah Mackenzie, you were afraid. So afraid of what your father did to you at night. And when you finally mustered the courage to feel anger about it, the anger scared you more than the abuse. So you repressed it, pushed it down, denied it until it completely separated and became this. The creature stopped, trembling. A sound emerged from it, half moan, half howl. Your anger was justified, Sarah. You had every right to be furious. It didn't make you bad. It made you human, wounded, and deserving of justice you never received. The form began to shrink. Distorted limbs retracted. The torn mouth slowly healed until it became human again. You can let go of the anger now, not because it was wrong, but because you no longer need to carry it. What happened was real. It was terrible, but it's over. And you, Sarah, you can finally rest. Sarah Mackenzie's shadow wept. Tears that were holes in the very darkness, revealing light behind them. And then she dissolved, departed, finally freed herself after 58 years trapped by her own rejected rage. 13 to go. The night was a battle, not of violence, but of compassion under fire. Each shadow attacked, tested, tried to consume him. And each time Miguel had to see beyond the monster to the human wound beneath. The alcoholic who hated himself so much that his self-hatred became a living thing. The mother whose love for her children was so intense that it transformed into suffocating possessiveness and, denied, into poisonous jealousy. The preacher whose repressed lust grew in the shadows until it became something he no longer recognized. Each one demanded difficult truths. Recognition that bad impulses don't make someone irredeemably evil. That making mistakes doesn't erase all worth. That being human means carrying contradictions and still deserving love.